Vyasa. Vyasa was a partial incarnation of the god Vishnu. According to Maharishi, his responsibility in life is to guard the wisdom contained in the Vedas against the onslaughts of the Kali age. He wrote the Mahabharata, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, each one of which is a monumental feat. There is an interesting story about the writing of the Mahabharata. Vyasa was visiting with some kings and other sages when he happened to mention that he had composed in his mind a way of telling the life story of the avatar Lord Krishna in such a way as to express every possible problem that could occur to a human being and the solution thereof. As soon as he said this, the elephant-headed god Ganesha, who is the son of Mother Divine and Shiva, and is one of the five deities presiding at the head of creation, appeared and said that he would write down all the words Vyasa spoke, so long as he didn't repeat himself and so long as his Ganesha's pen didn't pause. To this Vyasa teasingly replied that the only time Ganesha would have to pause would be to ponder what had been said, and with that he dictated 1,000,000 verses. So great is the wisdom contained in those verses that Ganesha took 900,000 of them back with him to the celestial regions for the use of the gods, and the other 100,000 verses he left on earth for man. These 100,000 verses comprise the Mahabharata we know today. It is, without question, the largest epic poem and quite possibly the greatest ever written. It is 5,000 years old, so it predates the Greek epics by several centuries. If you care to look, you will find most of the plots and storylines of the Greek epics in the Mahabharata. The central 18 chapters of the Mahabharata are the dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna that took place just before the great war at Kurukshetra began. They are called the Song of God and are quite often published as a separate book under their Sanskrit title, the Bhagavad Gita. Maharishi has said that the Bhagavad Gita contains the highest wisdom understandable by man. Mahatma Gandhi kept a copy of the Gita with him wherever he went, and it was studied in depth by such people as Henry David Thoreau, Walt Whitman, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Dr. G. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, quoted from the Gita when he described its successful test reporters. And it is said that Dr. Oppenheimer took the trouble to teach himself Sanskrit so he could read the Gita in its native language. Vyasa's great work has influenced many great minds. Whenever the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita is in danger of being corrupted by a new translation and commentary, Vyasa appears before the author and challenges his understanding. In this way, Vyasa also safeguards the wisdom of the Gita as well as that of the Vedas. A side note: the Kali Age began in the year 3102 before Christ, over 5,000 years ago, and has a total duration of 432,000 years, almost half a million years. You may ask yourself, how can a single master, no matter how great, safeguard the purity of the Vedas for almost half a million years? The answer is, as an avatar of the god Vishnu, he can live physically as long as he chooses. He can also call down as much of his Vishnu's power, authority, or understanding as he needs to get the job done. One of the methods Vyasa used to guard the purity of the Vedas was to organize them. Before Vyasa, there was only one mass of hymns known as the Veda. Vyasa organized the Veda into four parts according to the duties of the four sacrificial priests at Vedic rituals: Hotri, Advaryu, Brahman, Adudgatri. Hotri, Advaryu, Brahman, and Udgatri. The Rig Veda is based on the duties of the Hotri. The Samaveda is based on the duties of the Udgatri. The Yajurveda is based on the duties of the Advaryu. And the Atharva Veda is based on the duties of the Brahman priest. In 1970, Maharishi decided to write a commentary on the Vedas. In order to do justice to such an important work, he decided to do it in an atmosphere so pure that the Vedas could be cognized directly at their source, where they manifest out of the absolute. An atmosphere of such purity is difficult to find in the Kali age. So Maharishi conducted a teacher training course hike in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, which he selected as the site, and he used the long meditations of 400 participants to purify the atmosphere. As the days and weeks went by, Maharishi reported every evening that the atmosphere was getting clearer and to keep up the long meditations. At last, he announced that he had discovered the Vedas need no commentary. Vyasa had organized them in such a manner that they were self-explanatory. He went on to say that the whole of the Rig Veda is contained in the first word, Agnim. The words that follow in the first stanza are commentaries, or further elucidations on the meaning contained in the first word, and the stanzas which follow that are further elucidations of each of the words in the first stanza. In this way, the Veda becomes self-explanatory and does not need a commentary, just a good Sanskrit dictionary. This is all due to the magnificent manner in which Vyasa was able to organize the Veda. He did much more than just organize into four groups. Because of the work he did on the Vedas, Vyasa is often called Veda Vyasa. He is also referred as Krishna due to his dark complexion, Vadarayana, and Vaipayana, because his birth took place on an island Dvipa. Vyasa's contribution to the religious thought of India is simply without peer. It is not possible to express the magnitude of the effect he has had in the world of philosophy and spirituality. The Mahabharata alone is so extensive and so intelligently constructed that many modern scholars don't believe it could have come from one person. Vyasa wanted to have a son. The sage Narada advised him to worship Lord Shiva if he wanted a son. Vyasa went to a place close to Mount Meru, Mount Kailas in Tibet, and performed long meditations dedicated to Shiva. He wanted a son who would excel all others and have the qualities of the five elements. While performing, while performing a Vedic rite to Shiva, a brilliantly colored parrot with five colors symbolizing the five elements flew in front of him, and he became infatuated by the beauty of it. There appeared before him a very bright divine person who was born of Vyasa's devotion to Lord Shiva and his infatuation with the brilliant colors of the parrot. At the birth of this person, without attachment to a womb, all the worlds were delighted. The hide of a black antelope, a water pot, and a hermit's rod dropped from the heavens. Birth rituals and ceremonies were conducted by Vyasa, and the investment of the sacred string of the Brahmins was done by Lord Shiva himself. Because his birth took place under the inspiration of a parrot, Shuka, the boy was named Shuka. After investiture of the Brahmin threat, the boy was sent to the hermitage of Brihaspati, the teacher of the Devas, for his education. Next chapter is named Shukadeva. 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 Shuka, the son of Vyasa, grew to be a brilliant boy. He became known as Shukadeva. Shuka means a brightly colored parrot, and Deva means the shining one. He was a very intelligent child, and he grew to be a great scholar. He mastered the knowledge of the scriptures, but enlightenment eluded him. He was vain, proud of his Brahmin caste, and very proud of his position as the son of the great sage Vyasa. One day he went to the temple of Vishnu Puri to see Vishnu, his chosen deity. When he got there, he was refused admittance because he could not tell the person in charge the name of his guru. He had no guru. He complained that he was the son of the great Veda Vyasa and that he had been worshipping Vishnu daily, but was told he could not enter until he had a guru. Shukadeva went home to his father and told him the story. He said, "You be my guru," but Vyasa refused, saying that King Janaka would be a suitable guru. Shukadeva was astounded at this. He said, "I am a Brahmin, but King Janaka is only a Kshatriya, warrior caste. How could he be a suitable guru for me? Furthermore, I am a sannyasi, recluse, but he is a householder attached to things of this world. How could be a suitable guru for me?" Vyasa replied, "Only King Janaka could be a fit guru for you." 12 times Vyasa sent Shukadeva to see King Janaka, but always he returned before seeing the king. When he saw the richness of the palace and the assemblage of worldly people, he thought that the king was attached to worldly pleasures and possessions, and he was unable to accept such a person as his guru. When a person suspects or slanders a realized soul, he loses some of the merits of his good karma. Seeing this happen to Shukadeva, the celestial sage Narada took pity on him. Narada disguised himself as an old Brahmin and situated himself on the bank of the river which was on the way to Shukadeva's home. As Shukadeva approached on his way home, Narada gathered baskets full of earth and threw them into the river, where they were instantly washed away. Again and again Narada threw earth into the river only to have it washed away by the swift current. When Shukadeva saw this, he thought to himself, "This foolish Brahmin is trying to dam the river. He is working so hard to fill his basket with earth and throw it into the water only to have it washed away." Shukadeva approached the old Brahmin and said, "If you want to dam the river, start with large boulders. Place them in position, then place 3 limbs in front of the boulders so that they are held in position by the pressure of the current. Against this put smaller branches, then finally you can fill it in with baskets full of earth. This is the only way you can dam this river. Otherwise, you can go on throwing baskets full of earth into the river for the rest of your life, and it will just be a foolish waste of time. I am only losing my day's effort, said Narada. But there is a bigger fool than I, and that is Shukadeva, son of the great sage Vyasa, for he has already lost 12 of the 14 merits of good karma that he possessed by thinking ill of a realized master. He only has 2 left. When Shukadeva heard this, he fainted from shock, and Narada walked away. When he regained consciousness, there was no old Brahmin in sight, but Shukadeva remembered his words and hastened off to the place of King Janaka. When Shukadeva reached the palace, he sent a message to the king. Tell the king, he said, Shukadeva, son of the great Vedavyasa, has arrived to see the king. When the king heard this message, he said, let him remain standing where he is. Shukadeva happened to be standing where the sweepings from the palace were thrown over the wall. He stood off for 4 days, and by that time he was almost buried in refuse. Then the king said, what has happened to Shukadeva, son of Vedavyasa, who came to seek an interview with me? An attendant told the king that Shukadeva was still standing outside, almost buried in refuse. The king said, extract him from the refuse, clean him up, and bring him to me. When Shukadeva was presented to the king, a messenger ran in and interrupted them, saying, Sire, fire has broken out in the kingdom. Janaka suddenly said, it is God's will, and did nothing. A short time later, another messenger ran in and said, Sire, the fire has reached the palace. King Janaka just said, it is God's will, and did nothing. Shukadeva could smell the smoke and feel the heat from the flames as the fire got closer. He thought to himself, this Janaka must be a fool to sit and do nothing while his kingdom and palace burn. He grabbed his small bag of possessions and turned to run, but Janaka stopped him. Before you go, said the king, let me ask you a question. Whom do you consider most attached to worldly things? Myself, a householder who is content to let all of this vast wealth burn, or you, a sannyasi, who has taken hold of his pitiful bundle of possessions and is intent upon running away? Shukadeva dropped his bundle, ashamed of his actions. He at last understood the greatness of the soul of Janaka. He bowed before the king and asked for initiation, but Janaka refused, saying, no, you do not deserve it. Through his great powers as a fully realized yogi, Janaka restored the kingdom to its previous condition. Then he ordered his officials to arrange for a festival day throughout the kingdom. Festivities, concerts, dances, plays, and spectacles of all kinds were to be prepared in honor of Shukadeva and to serve as his entertainment. When the preparations were complete, King Janaka handed Shukadeva a cup filled to the brim with milk and asked him to go through the city and enjoy all the brilliance and gaiety that had been prepared. Then the king turned to the captain of the guard and ordered him to accompany Shukadeva and make sure he saw everything. We must do all possible honor to our guest, he said as he smiled at Shukadeva. Then he turned back to the guard and said, if he spills a single drop of that milk, you must draw Your sword, and behead him at once. Then he turned again to Shukadeva, smiled, and said, Enjoy. Accompanied by the honor guard, Shukadeva went through the city. Late that night he returned to the place. How did you enjoy the entertainment? Asked the king. Was everything satisfactory? O king, as matters turned out, I saw nothing at all of the festivities. At every moment, all my attention was concentrated on this cup. Otherwise, I would have lost my life. King Janaka smiled. Shukadeva, he said, it is the same with me. This is how I live in the midst of all this luxury and grandeur. I see nothing of it, for at every moment all my thoughts are centered on God. Otherwise, I might lose what is most dear to me, awareness of Him. The difference is that your mind was concentrated out of fear, while mine is concentrated out of love. Then the king taught Shukadeva the symbolic significance of his experience. Imagine that the cup is the body, the milk is the mind, its flavor and nutritional value is spirituality, and the festivities are the passing joys of the world. Now the message is clear. At every moment, you should take great care that the mind is not agitated by the outer festivities of the world, or you will suffer a spiritual loss. You are now ready to be initiated. It should be understood that this initiation was not an initiation into transpersonal meditation that Janaka could not give. Shukadeva had been formally accepted by a guru and could now worship at the temple of Lord Vishnu. After this, Shukadeva returned to his father, who congratulated him on being cleansed of his spiritual egotism and pride, and his doubts to the Guru. These are two of the greatest obstacles to enlightenment, he said. Now you can worship at Vishnu Puri as often as you like, but think of for a minute. If a guru is needed even to enter into the lower spiritual regions ruled by Vishnu, how much more is a guru needed to gain admittance to the higher realms of pure spirit? Legend says that Shukadeva went on to become a greater spiritual teacher. He taught the Vedas to the Gandharvas, the celestial musicians. He also recited the entire text of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata to the Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas. He started out of a sannyasi, but later he became a householder. In the later part of his life, he left his father and his family to return to the life of a sannyasi. He went to Mount Kailasa to do tapas on Lord Shiva. There he attained perfect enlightenment, and the Puranas say he rose up into the heavens where he shone like a second sun.